The laughter hit me like a physical blow. Derek was in the middle of telling everyone how my rust bucket was an embarrassment to the family, gesturing dramatically at my 1994 Ford F-150 parked in the driveway, when he suddenly went silent. His face, red from laughter and beer, drained to the color of ash. His eyes locked onto something on the driver's side door, the faded, barely visible logo of Morrison Construction Company. His company. For 15 years, I'd been waiting for this moment. For 15 years, I'd kept his secret. But today, on this hot July 4th in suburban Dallas, with the smell of barbecue smoke hanging thick in the Texas air and 20 family members watching, Derek had finally pushed me too far. And I was about to tell them all exactly how his truck became mine. My name is Charlotte Webb, and I'm 61 years old. I spent 37 years as a mechanic in Austin before I retired and moved to Dallas to be closer to family. My hands are permanently stained with engine grease, my back aches from decades of crawling under vehicles, and I've never been the kind of woman who cares much about appearances. I wear my gray hair short, I prefer work boots to heels, and I drive a truck that's older than most people's marriages. In a family that values success, image, and keeping up with the Joneses, I've always been the odd one out. The black sheep. The one they tolerate at family gatherings but never quite respect. My younger sister Diane is different. She's everything I'm not. Polished, proper, married to a successful man, living in a 5-bedroom house in Frisco with a pool and a 3-car garage. She's the one our mother was proud of, the one who did everything right. She married Derek Morrison 24 years ago, when he was just starting his construction company and full of big dreams. Those dreams came true. Morrison Construction became one of the most successful residential builders in the Dallas-Fort Worth metroplex. They built subdivisions, custom homes, commercial properties. Derek went from driving a beat-up work truck to owning a Mercedes and a Lexus. They had 3 kids, took vacations to Hawaii, and their Christmas cards were always professionally photographed with everyone in matching outfits. And me? I divorced my high school sweetheart after 10 years when we realized we'd grown into different people. I never remarried. I never had kids. I lived in a small apartment above the garage where I worked, and I spent my days covered in motor oil, fixing other people's vehicles. At family gatherings, I was the topic of whispered conversations. Poor Charlotte. Couldn't make her marriage work. Never had children. Still getting her hands dirty at her age. Derek was particularly fond of making jokes at my expense. Little comments about my appearance, my lifestyle, my truck. Always delivered with a smile, always wrapped in humor, but with an edge that let me know exactly what he thought of me. That truck, that 1994 Ford F-150, became his favorite target. Still driving that antique, Charlotte? You know they make new vehicles now, right? That thing's gonna die on the highway one of these days, and they'll find you weeks later because nobody expects you to be anywhere important. The family would laugh, uncomfortable but compliant, because Derek was successful and I was just Charlotte, the mechanic who never amounted to much. What none of them knew, what nobody except Derek and I knew, was the story of how I got that truck. And that story started 15 years ago, on a sweltering afternoon in August 2009. I was working at Pete's Auto Shop on the east side of Austin, a place that specialized in older vehicles and served a working-class clientele who couldn't afford dealership prices. I'd been there for almost 20 years, had worked my way up from apprentice to senior mechanic, and Pete trusted me completely. One day, around 3 in the afternoon, a woman pulled up in a Ford F-150 work truck. She was maybe 30, blonde, attractive in that carefully maintained way that requires both money and effort. She was nervous, kept looking over her shoulder, fidgeting with her car keys. "I need to sell this truck," she said without preamble. "Today, fast. Cash." That should have been my first warning. In the used vehicle business, when someone wants to sell fast for cash, it usually means one of 3 things: stolen vehicle, mechanical problems they're hiding, or personal problems they're running from. I walked around the truck, checking it over. It was a 1994 F-150, Forest green, with about 90,000 miles on it. The body had some rust, a few dents, but the engine sounded solid. The interior was clean. There was a faded company logo on the driver's side door, Morrison Construction Company, with a phone number I didn't recognize. "Why are you selling?" I asked. "Personal reasons," she said curtly. "It's not stolen, if that's what you're thinking. I have the title right here, signed over to me. I just need to sell it. Today. I'll take $3,000. $3,000 for a truck that was easily worth 7 or 8, even with the wear and tear. Red flag number 2. But I'd been wanting a truck, something I could use for my own projects, and I had the money saved. Pete checked the VIN, verified the title was legitimate, and I bought it. The woman took the cash, didn't even negotiate, and drove away in a taxi she'd called while we were doing the paperwork. I never got her name beyond what was on the title transfer, Vanessa Hayes. For the first few weeks, I just drove the truck. It ran well, better than I'd expected. The transmission was solid, the engine had been maintained, and aside from the cosmetic issues, it was a good vehicle. I made plans to restore it slowly, a project to occupy my weekends. Then, one Saturday, while I was cleaning out the interior, I found something wedged under the passenger seat. A manila envelope, pushed so far back it had been invisible. Inside were receipts. Hotel receipts from places in Dallas and Fort Worth. Dinner receipts from expensive restaurants. Gas receipts. And printed emails, the kind people used to print out in the days before smartphones were ubiquitous. Conversations between two people planning meetings, expressing affection, making arrangements. The name on all the credit card receipts was Derek Morrison, my brother-in-law, my sister's husband. I sat in that truck for an hour, reading through everything, feeling sick. The dates on the receipts spanned about 8 months, from late 2008 to early 2009. The emails were explicit enough to leave no doubt about the nature of the relationship. Derek had been having an affair with Vanessa Hayes. And apparently when the affair ended, he'd given her this truck. Maybe as a parting gift, maybe to get rid of evidence, maybe both. And she'd sold it the first chance she got, probably wanting to erase all traces of him from her life. I thought about Diane. In 2009, she'd been pregnant with their 3rd child, Jake. She'd been dealing with difficult pregnancy complications, on bed rest for the last 2 months. She'd talked about how stressed Derek was, how hard he was working to keep the business going during the recession, how he was barely home. Now I understood why. I should have told her immediately. I know that now. But at the time, I convinced myself I was protecting her. She was pregnant. She was vulnerable. The affair was apparently over. Vanessa had sold the truck, which suggested she was out of Derek's life. What good would it do to blow up Diane's marriage when she was about to have a baby? So I made a decision that I would regret for the next 15 years. I kept the secret, but I couldn't just let Derek get away with it either. A few days after my discovery, I called him. Asked him to meet me at a coffee shop in Dallas, said it was important. He showed up looking annoyed, like I was wasting his time. I handed him the envelope of receipts and emails across the table and watched his face go through a series of expressions. Confusion, recognition, fear, panic. "Where did you get these?" His voice was barely above a whisper. "From the truck I just bought. The Ford F-150 with your company logo on the door. The one you apparently gave to Vanessa Hayes. The one she sold to me 3 weeks ago." He looked like he might throw up. "Charlotte, listen. It's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think. You had an affair. While Diane was pregnant, you gave your mistress a truck, and when she was done with you, she sold it. And now I own it, along with all the evidence of what you did. You can't tell Diane." His voice was desperate now. "Please, Charlotte, it's over. It ended months ago. I made a mistake. I was stressed, the business was struggling, and I'm not making excuses, but it's over. Telling Diane now would destroy her. She's pregnant. She's having complications. It would kill her. Please." I looked at him across that coffee shop table. This man who'd married my sister, who'd fathered her children, who'd made jokes at my expense for years while hiding this betrayal. "Why should I protect you?" "You shouldn't," he said. "I don't deserve it. But Diane does. She deserves to have her baby without this stress. She deserves to recover from the pregnancy before her world falls apart. I'm begging you, Charlotte. Not for me. For her." I hated that his logic made sense. Or maybe I just wanted it to make sense because I was afraid of what the truth would do. "I'm keeping the truck," I said finally. "And I'm keeping these documents. And if I ever hear that you've done this again, if I ever find out you've hurt my sister like this again, I'll tell her everything. Understood?" He nodded, relief flooding his face. "Thank you. Thank you. I swear it'll never happen again. I love Diane. I made a terrible mistake, but I love her." "Get out of here," I said. "And Derek, stop pretending you're better than everyone else. You're not." For 15 years, I kept that promise. I kept his secret. Jake was born healthy in September 2009. Diane recovered. Derek's business survived the recession and then thrived. They moved to the big house in Frisco. Their kids grew up. Christmas cards arrived every year, full of smiling faces and holiday cheer. And at every family gathering, Derek would make his little comments, his little jokes, always reminding everyone that I was less than, that my life was small, that my choices were questionable. And I would drive home in that Ford F-150, the physical evidence of his betrayal, and I would tell myself I was doing the right thing by staying quiet. I was protecting Diane. I was keeping the family together. But the truth was, I was protecting Derek. I was enabling him. I was letting him get away with it. The truck became a strange kind of symbol between us. Every time he saw it, his jaw would tighten. Every time I drove it to a family event, I could see the calculation in his eyes. Would today be the day I told? And every time he made a joke about it, I would smile and take it, and we both knew what was really happening. It was a silent war, fought over the hood of a 1994 Ford F-150, and nobody else knew the battle was even taking place. I kept the truck running perfectly. I replaced parts as needed, maintained the engine religiously, fixed the rust and the dents. I could have bought a new vehicle a dozen times over the years, but I didn't. That truck was a reminder, to me and to Derek, that some debts never get paid, some secrets never truly stay buried, and some people never really change. Which brings us to the 4th of July, 2024. Diane was hosting the annual family barbecue at their house, a tradition she'd started years ago. It was always a big production. The pool was open. There was a bounce house for the grandkids. Derek would smoke brisket and ribs on his expensive grill, and everyone would stay until the fireworks started. I drove the hour from my apartment in Dallas, the F-150 running smooth as always, and parked in their circular driveway next to the Mercedes and the Lexus and my nephew's new Silverado. The comments started almost immediately. My niece's husband, who I'd met maybe 3 times, asked if I'd driven up from the 1990s. Derek's business partner made a joke about the truck being old enough to drink. But it was Derek who took it to the next level. Maybe it was the beer. Maybe it was the audience of family and friends. Maybe it was 15 years of resentment that I'd never broken, never told, never given him a reason to lose sleep even though I could have destroyed him at any moment. We were all gathered in the backyard, 20-some people sitting on patio furniture and lawn chairs, the Texas sun beating down mercilessly despite the shade from the covered patio. The kids were in the pool, shrieking and splashing. The adults were on their 2nd or 3rd drinks. Someone had made a comment about parking arrangements, and Derek seized the opportunity. "Speaking of parking," he said loudly, making sure everyone could hear. "Charlotte, I gotta ask. How much longer are you planning to drive that embarrassment in the driveway? That thing's older than some of my employees. It's a miracle it made it here without breaking down." There was uncomfortable laughter. Diane looked embarrassed. For me or at Derek, I couldn't tell. "Derek, come on," she said half-heartedly. but he was on a roll now, playing to the crowd. No, seriously, that truck should be in a museum, or a junkyard. Probably the junkyard. I mean, look at it. Rust, dents, faded paint. It's like Charlotte's making a statement about refusing to move forward with her life. Still living in the past. Still driving that old beater. Still… Derek. My voice cut through his monologue. I hadn't raised my voice, but something in my tone made him stop. You should be careful about insulting that truck. Oh yeah? Why's that? He grinned, emboldened by alcohol and audience. You gonna cry about it? It's just a truck, Charlotte. A really old, really ugly truck. That thing should be in the scrap heap, and honestly, so should… He stopped. Mid-sentence. Mid-gesture. His arm, which had been waving toward the driveway, froze in the air. His eyes had finally focused on what he was pointing at, really seeing it for the first time in years. The logo on the driver's side door. Morrison Construction Company. Faded, barely visible, but there. Always there. For 15 years. The silence that fell over the patio was profound. Everyone was looking at Derek, confused by his sudden stillness, by the expression on his face. He'd gone pale under his tan. His hand dropped to his side. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Derek? Diane's voice was concerned. Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. That's because he has, I said calmly. I stood up from my lawn chair, set down my iced tea, and walked to the center of the patio where everyone could see me. That logo Derek's staring at? That's his company logo, because that truck used to belong to him. Didn't it, Derek? He found his voice, though it came out strangled. Charlotte, don't what? Don't tell the truth? I've been keeping your truth for 15 years, Derek. But you just called my truck, your truck, a piece of junk that belongs in a scrap heap. Along with me, if I'd let you finish that sentence. So I think maybe it's time everyone heard the story of how I acquired this particular vehicle. Charlotte, please. His voice was desperate now. Not here. Not now. We can talk about this later. We've talked about it, I said. 15 years ago, we talked about it. You begged me to keep quiet, and I did. For Diane's sake, not yours. But I'm done protecting you. Diane was standing now, looking between Derek and me with growing alarm. What are you talking about? What's going on? I took a breath. This was it. The moment I'd been simultaneously dreading and anticipating for 15 years. In August of 2009, I bought that Ford F-150 from a woman in Austin. She sold it to me for $3,000, which was way below market value because she wanted to get rid of it fast. She wanted it out of her life. Her name was Vanessa Hayes. Derek made a sound like he'd been punched. Several people in the crowd shifted uncomfortably, not understanding but sensing that something significant was happening. Diane's face was frozen, unreadable. After I bought the truck, I continued, I found some documents that had been left under the passenger seat. Hotel receipts, restaurant receipts, printed emails, all with Derek's name on them, all dated from late 2008 to early 2009. All clearly indicating that Derek and Vanessa Hayes were having an affair. I paused, looking directly at my sister. While you were pregnant with Jake, while you were on bed rest with complications, Derek was having an affair, and when it ended, he gave his mistress this truck. She sold it to me, and I've been driving it ever since. The explosion of sound was immediate. Diane's hand flew to her mouth. Several women gasped. Derek's business partner actually stood up, staring at Derek with shock. My nephew, Jake, the baby who'd been in Diane's womb during all of this, looked like he'd been slapped. He was 24 now, a grown man, and he was staring at his father with an expression I'd never seen before. That's not… You're lying! Derek was stammering, his face red now, but not from the sun or the beer. From panic. Charlotte has always been jealous of us, of our success. And I have the documents, I said quietly. I've kept them all these years. Hotel receipts from the Hilton in Fort Worth. Dinner receipts from restaurants in Dallas. Emails planning meetings, making arrangements. All with your name on them, Derek. All dated from when Diane was carrying your son. Diane's voice, when it came, was barely audible. Is this true? Derek looked at her, and I saw the moment he realized he had no way out. His shoulders sagged. Diane, it was a long time ago. Is it true? Yes. The word was barely a whisper. Yes, it's true. But it was 15 years ago, and it ended, and I've been faithful ever since, and I love you. Get away from me. Diane's voice was shaking. Get away from me right now. Diane, please, let me explain. Explain? Her voice rose, cracking. Explain what? That you cheated on me while I was pregnant? While I was scared and sick and worried about losing our baby? That you gave your mistress a truck, and then let me think we were happy? That you've spent 15 years lying to me? She turned to me, tears streaming down her face. You knew? You've known this whole time? The accusation in her voice hurt worse than anything Derek had ever said to me. Yes, I said. I knew. And I kept it secret because I thought I was protecting you. Because you were pregnant, and Derek swore it was over, and I thought knowing would hurt you more than not knowing. I was wrong. I should have told you then. I should have trusted you to be strong enough to handle the truth. Everyone needs to leave. Diane's voice was steady now, cold with shock. Everybody out. Now. The guests scrambled to comply, gathering children and belongings, mumbling apologies and excuses. Nobody looked at Derek. Nobody looked at me. They just fled, desperate to escape the scene of the family implosion. I started to leave too, but Diane grabbed my arm. Not you, she said. You stay. And Derek, you stay too. The three of us are going to talk, now. We sat in their formal living room, the one that was usually reserved for Christmas and special occasions, the one with the cream-colored carpet and the furniture that nobody was allowed to eat on. Diane sat in an armchair, her back straight, her face pale but composed. Derek and I sat on the couch, as far apart as possible, neither of us looking at the other. I want to see the documents, Diane said. They're in the truck, I said. I'll get them. I walked out to the F-150, my hands shaking, and retrieved the manila envelope from the locked toolbox in the truck bed. I'd kept them there for 15 years, always with me, always accessible. Evidence of a crime I'd chosen not to prosecute. I brought them back inside and handed them to Diane. She read through everything slowly, methodically. Derek sat with his head in his hands, not speaking. I sat and watched my sister's face as she absorbed the proof of her husband's betrayal. The hotel receipts, the romantic dinners, the emails with their casual intimacy, their plans and promises, their evidence of a relationship that had been happening in the shadows while she'd been home, pregnant and scared, trusting her husband to be faithful. When she finished, she set the envelope down carefully on the coffee table. How many others were there? Derek's head snapped up. What? How many others, Derek? If there was Vanessa, were there others? Before her? After her? No, he said quickly. No, I swear it was just... Don't lie to me, not anymore. I will find out the truth eventually. So tell me now. How many? The silence stretched. Derek's face went through a series of expressions: denial, calculation, resignation. 3, he finally whispered. 3 others, over the years. But Diane, I swear, I love you. I never wanted to hurt you. They didn't mean anything. Diane stood up. Get out of my house. Diane, get out of my house. Her voice was steel. Take your wallet and your phone and nothing else. Get out. My lawyer will contact you tomorrow. Do not come back without calling first. Do not contact the children until I've decided how to tell them. Get out." Derek looked at me, as if I might somehow intervene, might save him now the way I'd saved him 15 years ago by staying silent. But I just looked back at him, and he saw nothing in my face but the justice he'd always known might come. He left. We heard his Mercedes start in the driveway, heard the gravel crunch as he pulled away. Then it was just Diane and me, sitting in her perfect living room in her perfect house in the ruins of her perfect life. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. Not angry now. Just tired. Just broken. 15 years, Charlotte. Why? "Because I thought I was protecting you," I said. "Because you were pregnant and vulnerable, and he convinced me that the affair was over, and I thought you were better off not knowing. I thought I was being a good sister by keeping his secret. But I wasn't. I was being a coward. I was protecting him, not you. And I'm sorry. I'm so, so sorry." Diane was quiet for a long time. Then, "Did you know about the others?" "No, I swear to you, no. If I'd known, I would have told you. Or at least, I hope I would have. I don't know anymore what I would have done. I don't trust my own judgment about this." "That truck," Diane said. "You kept it all these years. Why? At first, as evidence, as leverage, in case he ever hurt you again. But over time, it became something else. It became, I don't know, a reminder, a symbol. He would make jokes about it, and I would take them, and we both knew what was really happening. It was the secret between us. The truth he was afraid I'd tell." "He's been making fun of you for years," Diane said slowly. "About your life, your choices, that truck. And the whole time he was terrified of what you knew. Yes, and you let him. You let him mock you year after year, and you never said anything. I thought I was keeping the peace. I thought I was doing the right thing. But really, I was just letting him get away with it. I was enabling him." Diane put her face in her hands. Her shoulders shook. I moved to sit beside her, put my arm around her, and she leaned into me like she used to when we were kids, and the world felt too big. We sat like that for a long time, two sisters in a perfect house that was falling apart, holding on to each other while everything changed. The divorce took 8 months. Derek fought it at first, tried to convince Diane to go to counseling, to work it out, to remember their 24 years of marriage. But Diane was done. She hired a vicious lawyer who dug into every aspect of Derek's life and business. They found evidence of 2 more affairs he hadn't mentioned. They found money he'd hidden in offshore accounts. They found expenditures for jewelry and trips that had never been gifts for Diane. The perfect, successful businessman was revealed to be a serial cheater and a financial cheat, and the divorce settlement reflected that reality. Diane got the house, half the business, and substantial alimony. Derek got his reputation destroyed, and the knowledge that his 3 children, now adults, barely spoke to him. Jake, especially, was devastated. The son who'd been in the womb during that first affair felt betrayed in a way that went deeper than words. He moved in with Diane after the divorce, even though he was 24 and had his own apartment. He just wanted to be close to her, to make sure she was okay. Diane and I spent a lot of time together in those months. We talked about everything: our childhood, our choices, our regrets. We talked about how I should have told her the truth 15 years ago, and how she wished I had, but how she also understood why I didn't. We talked about marriage and betrayal, and the lies people tell themselves to keep their worlds from falling apart. "I knew something was off," she told me one night over wine at her kitchen table. Not consciously, but somewhere deep down. There were times he'd come home late, times he'd be distant, times when his story didn't quite add up. But I ignored it. I told myself I was being paranoid. I convinced myself we were happy because the alternative was too scary. "That's what I was afraid of," I said. "That if I told you, you'd find a way to rationalize it, to forgive him, to stay. And then you'd resent me for forcing you to know. Maybe I would have, she admitted. 15 years ago, when I was younger and more afraid and more dependent on him, maybe I would have forgiven him and stayed and hated you for telling me. But Charlotte, I wish I'd had the choice. I wish you'd trusted me enough to let me make that decision for myself. She was right. And that was the lesson I learned too late. That silence isn't protection, it's control. By keeping Derek's secret, I'd taken away Diane's agency, her right to make informed decisions about her own life. I'd thought I was saving her, but really, I was just saving myself from having to watch her pain. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I did something I'd been planning for a while. I took the Ford F-150 to a restoration shop, a good one, and I had them do a complete overhaul. New paint job, still forest green but bright and glossy now. Fixed all the rust, smoothed out all the dents, replaced the interior, rebuilt the engine, made it perfect. And I had them paint over the faded Morrison Construction logo with something new. A phoenix rising from flames, bright and defiant. When I drove up to Diane's house to show her, she came out to the driveway and stood there staring at the truck for a long moment. Then she laughed, really laughed, for the first time since everything had fallen apart. "It's beautiful," she said. "It's perfect. You made something beautiful out of something that represented such ugliness." "That's the thing about restoration," I said. "It's not about pretending the damage never happened. It's about acknowledging it and making something better anyway." This 4th of July 2025, we had another family barbecue. But this time, it was at my place. A small house I'd bought in Oak Cliff, with a backyard big enough for a grill and some lawn chairs, but nothing fancy. Diane came, and Jake, and his siblings. My nieces and nephews and their families. My mother, who'd spent the last year processing her own complicated feelings about Derek's betrayal. Even Derek's business partner came, the one who'd stood up in shock at last year's revelation. He and Derek weren't partners anymore, and he wanted us to know he'd had no idea what Derek was doing. We didn't invite Derek. Some bridges, once burned, don't get rebuilt. But we were there, the family that remained, the people who'd chosen to stick together despite everything. And in my driveway sat the restored F-150, gleaming in the Texas sun, the phoenix on its side catching the light. "You know what I realized?" Diane said to me as we stood by the grill, watching the kids play in the sprinkler. "That truck was never about Derek. It was about you. About how you refused to let his judgment define you. About how you kept driving it, kept maintaining it, kept it running despite all his mockery. You didn't keep quiet because you were weak. You kept quiet because you were strong enough to carry the weight of that knowledge without letting it destroy you." "I don't know if that's strength or stubbornness," I said. "Maybe they're the same thing," she said. "Maybe that's what strength is. Being stubborn enough to keep going even when everything tells you to give up." I think about that conversation a lot. I think about secrets and lies, about protection and control, about the difference between loyalty and complicity. I think about how I kept Derek's secret for 15 years, telling myself I was protecting Diane, when really I was just protecting the status quo. I think about how silence can feel like kindness, but function like cruelty. But mostly, I think about that truck, that 1994 Ford F-150 that became a symbol of so many things: betrayal and evidence, secret-keeping and justice delayed, restoration and transformation. For 15 years, it was the truth nobody wanted to acknowledge, sitting right there in the driveway where everyone could see it but nobody did. And then, in one moment on a hot July afternoon, it became the catalyst for everything changing. Derek texts me sometimes. Apologies, explanations, requests to talk. I don't respond. There's nothing left to say. He made his choices, I made mine, and we all live with the consequences. He lost his family, his reputation, and his business partnership. He has a smaller company now, a smaller life, and he's alone in ways that have nothing to do with relationship status. And me? I'm still driving that truck. Still living my simple life in Oak Cliff. Still working part-time at a local garage because I love the work and I'm not ready to fully retire. Still the black sheep in some ways, but now that seems like less of an insult and more of a description. The one who doesn't quite fit the mold, who doesn't care about appearances, who values truth over comfort. The truck runs perfectly now. Every time I turn the key and hear that engine purr, I think about second chances, about how we can take something broken and make it whole, about how the past doesn't define us unless we let it, about how sometimes the thing everyone ridicules becomes the thing that sets everyone free. If I could go back and change anything, would I tell Diane the truth 15 years sooner? I still don't know. Maybe she's right, that I should have trusted her to be strong enough to handle it. Maybe I'm right, that the timing would have destroyed her. Maybe we're both right, and the truth is more complicated than either of us wants to admit. But I do know this. Silence protects the guilty more than it protects the innocent. Secrets kept in the name of kindness often function as weapons in the hands of those who should have been exposed. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone isn't to shield them from hard truths, but to trust them to be strong enough to face those truths and make their own choices. So if you're keeping someone's secret, ask yourself who you're really protecting. And if someone is mocking you, ridiculing your choices, making you feel small, ask yourself if maybe they're the ones who should be afraid. Because sometimes the thing they're laughing at is exactly the thing that will reveal who they really are. That Ford F-150 taught me that. It taught me that rust can be repaired, dents can be smoothed out, and faded paint can be made bright again. It taught me that something old isn't necessarily worthless, and something ridiculed isn't necessarily wrong. It taught me that justice sometimes takes 15 years, but it comes. And it taught me that the truth, like a good engine, will keep running as long as you maintain it, and eventually it will take you where you need to go. So I keep driving it. Through the streets of Dallas, to family gatherings, to work, to wherever I need to be. And every time someone asks about it, about why I drive such an old truck, why I spent so much restoring it, why it matters to me, I tell them the truth. Not to hurt anyone, but because the truth matters. Because secrets kept too long become poison. Because sometimes the best way to honor the past is to drag it into the light and show everyone what really happened. And that, more than anything Derek ever said, more than any joke or insult or moment of ridicule, is what gives me peace. I know the truth. I told the truth. And the truth, no matter how long it takes to emerge, will always outlast the lies. That's what my old truck taught me. And I wouldn't trade that lesson for all the new vehicles in the world.